Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
Welcome back, Sixers, to another episode of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. This is episode 152. Today is January 1st, 2024. Happy New Year, everyone. I am Bill, and I am joined, as always, by my post-craniomasticational co-hosts, Amy and Jordan.
I'm sorry, Matt, did we eat something, or do I not understand Latin?
Craniomasticational.
Head munching day.
Oh, craniomastication. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
It took me a second, but I got there. I got it.
Before we get started, we do want to remind our listeners that the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is not a spoiler-free podcast. That means if there's something in the Cosmere you haven't read and you're worried about hearing spoilers, you might want to go read those first, then come back and join the discussion. Today, we're not talking about any specific stories in the Cosmere, so you could be safe, but be careful because there's all sorts of stuff that could be what the heck is going on right now. So we'll try and keep it spoiler free, but we're not making any promises on that. So yeah, you've been warned. And tonight is one of my favorite episodes of the year because tonight we are going to be picking apart Brandon's latest State of the Sanderson blog post.
Mm-hmm.
I love the State of the Sanderson. I wait for the State of the Sanderson every year.
Like more writers should do it.
The State of the Sanderson?
The State of the author name.
I mean,
everyone
I guess
else can tell us how Brandon's doing.
I mean, who knows what George R.R. Martin would say about how Brandon's doing, or
he's writing too fast.
Robin Hobb, or The Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is made possible by the support of our listeners and patrons. The show will, of course, continue to be free, but if you want to help us out, you can head over to patreon.com/Cosmere Studies. Even pledging a couple bucks per episode really helps us out as we work to improve the show. Patrons get immediate access to our Discord channel where you can talk about the show or the Cosmere with other listeners. We've got a good community over there, awesome people. We love the discussions that we have. You'll also get early access to bonus episodes, exclusive access to other bonus content, and other good stuff. Also, as a reminder to those who listen to the podcast recordings, I'm doing things out of order today, shaking it up. It's a new year. Who knows what's going to happen? For those of you who listen to the podcast recordings or watch the videos on YouTube, we do want to remind you it's possible for listeners to interact with us live via chat as we record each episode at www.youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. We record episodes every other Monday night, starting at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, so please join us and take an active part in the discussion. Back to thanking patrons, we specifically want to thank our newest patron, Jeremy C. Thank you so much. You are amazing. And to all of our other patrons, thank you. Y'all are also amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So we're back from holiday breaks. How are we holding up? How are we recovering?
Doing okay.
Jordan is another year older.
Mm-hmm. Birthday was yesterday. For my birthday. You can't tell, this is Sanderson gear. This is a Dragonsteel jacket.
I want one of those, and now I can't have one because then it'd be awkward.
Yeah, then it'd be weird.
Well, we could all have one, and then we just are like a whole thing. I don't know.
One of us would have to change.
Amy, you seem to be full of solutions. I'm talking about problems here.
I'm wearing this year's shirt. I got this one.
I need my.
I'm sorry.
I need one. No apologies. I'm glad you got it. That's awesome.
Nice.
I'm not. How dare you?
Hey, Papa.
Jingle bells.
But no, in all seriousness, is a really fun end of the year.
Yep. I had good times with family at home, and actually, let me show you something I got completely unexpected. So my brother gave me this dagger. He said, I saw this and I've been holding it for you and I plan to give it to you. So
there you go.
It's dragon, and it looks like it's to be steel. So I have a steel dragon dagger. Wait, dragon steel. Wait. Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was fun. Yeah, spent a lot of time with family. I got to go to Dreamland Barbecue, which is my favorite restaurant in the entire world. Restocked on seasonings and sauces because then I can try making it myself. Yeah, what other exciting things did y'all do?
I stayed here. I dashed doors.
What you did, and you need to get big credit for, is you cleaned out my fridge. Thank you very much, my friend.
That was a project, yes.
That was amazing.
Like cleaned or cleaned?
Yes.
Cleaned with a capital C.
Like emptied and then washed.
Oh, good job. That was my job at checkout for an apartment forever ago, and that was terrible doing that.
Oh gosh, yes.
We may have had some stuff that got stuck in the back that was in despoiled status.
We won't talk about those things. Oh man, but yeah. Yes. Taylor in chat says dragon legally distinct metal. Exactly.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's move on. Oh, what?
I was just gonna say I was here for Christmas. We tried out our new tree for the first time ever, so that was nice.
Nice.
So
is it artificial?
Yeah, we always do artificial.
Okay.
But we just had used my old in-laws tree, and so it had it worked okay, but a bunch of the lights just weren't.
For the
working
record, these aren't different in-laws than the old ones. The tree is what is old, not the in-laws.
Yes, the in-laws have not changed. It's the tree. But yes, so we had a new tree.
Amy has a surprise for everyone, apparently.
Surprise! No. We're not even getting close to that hint.
Okay.
I'm very happily married.
And we're thrilled at that because Josh
there we go.
is awesome.
So anyway, but we got our Prusa XL put together, which is a giant printer, so I could maybe print helmets in one go. So we're doing the first test print. So
very nice. Is it resin or filament?
Filament.
Okay.
Yeah, resin is scary because it's toxic and
it can. Yeah, my brother recently got a resin printer.
Really nice.
As long as we don't lick it, what could go wrong?
Yeah, because how well have we done? Held up to that standard on this podcast.
We have held up surprisingly well. We have titles that confirm how little we've licked things.
True. Most of the titles are referring to not licking.
Not licking them, but the fact that they're referenced so many times is worrisome.
The fact that we find not licking things noteworthy, that there is concern.
I'm just pointing out, I believe the episode about, all these sounds are lickable. I think that was one of our guests. And so I think it's everyone else who's got the licking problem. We should be praised for how little we lick things.
To be fair, even Isaac came on the show and started talking about licking stuff.
Yes, he did. And if it weren't for the fact that he accidentally called his mom,
that would have been the title.
That would have been the title.
All right. Well, let's move on into announcements. Jordan, you have an update on our push to 3,000?
I do. We actually, for the first time, have some bad news in that regard. And I expected this part. 905 is our current sub count, which we stopped. We expect that over.
Oh, that's not bad news. That's neutral news.
We actually went down in our percentage. We're at 87.7 now.
Oh no.
Well, it's a running average of the past 365.
Right.
And so we got a nice boost last year. And I think a lot of people were, because of this, the state of the Sanderson and the year of the Sanderson was about to come out. There were a lot of people tuning in. And so if you have not, if you've sort of, take it a step back from listening duties, it is time. We want you on that wall. We need you on that wall.
Wow, we're making references to 90s Tom Cruise movies.
Yeah. Look, people can handle it.
That's A Few Good Men.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, if you haven't been, if you could start listening to old episodes, just need the sound on and others, and just keep clicking through. Help us out. Okay. We're trying to get to monetized.
Well, awesome. If that's all that we've got on announcements, then let's move on to the Cosmere Thing of the Week. So the last Cosmere thing of the week were the things that Amy and I sent out for Secret Stays, and so we feel like for reciprocality, we will showcase the things that we received. Amy hasn't received hers yet, but
so
that's sort of understood, especially in this year's Secret Stays, that it extends the season. So this one, what I got is a wallet with the Edge Dancer symbol on it, made entirely of duct tape.
There you go.
And it was labeled in the letter that I received that it was made of DUCK tape, which from what I've heard is some form of chicken. I don't know why they have a specific kind of tape assigned to them, but
it's
cool.
The water chicken,
That's the water chicken.
The small water chicken.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's like it's got all sorts of little pockets and secretness, and it's actually very well constructed. So thank you to Mason. I won't reveal last names because we don't do that here. We don't dox people. But thank you very much. Except for the
dog.
No, that's doxing.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
Very different.
So, all right. Well, if that's then let's move on into Sanderson news. This was a big one. This was a very, very big one, and to the point where Brandon got to wear a silly hat. Because Stormlight 5 is being 100% done. At least the rough draft, the first draft. Yes. And the second one is actually pretty close because he's been doing those revisions as he's been over the course of it as well. So he's close to 2.0 being done. And it will officially be coming out the first week of December 2024. The pre-order announcement has happened. It does have a name. It is called Wind and Truth, not Knights of Wind and Truth, but just Wind and Truth.
Though
no, you don't want it to.
But apparently, the in-world book very well is probably still going to be Knights of Wind and Truth, but just not the actual title of the book we get.
Well, you don't want it to be perfectly symmetrical because that's unholy.
Exactly. You don't want to go sacrilegious. And so, let's see. Skyward Legacy 1 is also complete. And like I said, Brandon had a very, very, very fun hat. It said 100 on it, and it made me happy. The pre-order is live. So to get a signed copy of this book, it's basically you have to get the swag package for Dragonsteel 2024. That's basically to save Brandon's hand and his ability and willingness to sign ridiculous numbers of copies of his books. So, also right now, as of today, Dragonsteel is closed. It has been for the past few weeks because Brandon is treating his staff kindly.
Yep.
And we appreciate that. But they will be back on January 2nd, which is tomorrow, or if you're watching this after the fact, it's already happened. So they're back. And they're probably incredibly busy right now. Keep an eye on the social media to find out about if they've leftover swag boxes from last year that will be up for sale on the website. They'll be posting about that in their social media. Also, Backer Kit is going to have the next update tomorrow, or already has it up on January 2nd about the leather-bound Words of Radiance. So keep an eye on that. I am looking forward to it. Also, have y'all noticed have y'all seen the Say the Words things that are coming up? Hashtag Say the Words.
Wait, things? No. Did a second one come out?
No.
I suddenly panicked.
The first one of a set that there will be things has come out. Did you see that, Amy? Basically, it's just stuff about each of the Radiant Orders. So the one that's come out is Windrunners. I think it was written by Dan, wasn't it?
Wait, was it the little scene
there was a little video?
Okay, I think I may have seen
it's
that.
Written from the perspective of one of Hoyd's storytellers.
Yes, a new World Singer apprentice.
Yes. Okay, so I did see that. Yes.
And so, And yes, Taylor in chat says it had Windrunner slander because there was the voice of the narrator is very mocking. It's wonderful. I kind of love it.
We needed some Windrunner slander because we've had this, like, let's face it, the first 4 books have been nothing but Windrunner propaganda.
Look how tough they have it. They're so
they've
tough.
they've been up on their high horse.
They're high flying horses.
Exactly.
Yes.
So,
just need to take them down a notch.
And also for the next couple of weeks, there will be no weekly update because Brandon is traveling, and Brandon is actually, a human, not a series of robots, as it has been actively disproved.
Has it?
I don't know, but
I think it's what the series of robots would want us to think.
But yeah, so yeah, that's the most of the weekly update stuff that's going on. And should we just dive into this thing?
Sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot, but it's all
okay.
good.
So just as a reminder to our listeners who may be unaware, every year on his birthday, December 19th, aka Kolos Head Munching Day, Brandon releases the State of the Sanderson. And every year it has gotten longer and longer and longer and in some ways juicier and in some ways less juicy, I've noticed. I feel like
he's been
Brandon's playing some things closer to the chest.
And this is year 10. I just noticed because I went to the website and it's 2013 was the first one he has listed, at least there.
Okay.
So
no, I love the State of the Sanderson. I'm excited about these. So yeah. So let's just dive in.
Okay.
So the very first thing is sort of a post-mortem of the Year of Sanderson, the Kickstarter. And it's one of those things. There's a feeling of ennui at the end of this sort of big thing, but I love that he stuck to his guns on this, making it a limited thing and saying, "And we're done."
Question:
yeah.
What is ennui?
Ennui. Oh gosh.
It's where you like.
It's sort of a
nostalgia
morose
and sadness and kind of.
Yeah. It's ennui. ENNUI.
It's French.
It is French.
Which means you look at it and don't know how to say it.
Ask Siri; she'll tell you.
Or Google. You've got a computer.
Did you just go ask your mother me?
Yes, I did. Well, wait, Siri's your mother?
I mean, in this situation, I don't know. There's no other woman in this house.
I've just learned new information. All right. My downstairs tenant is a cyborg.
Okay.
I'm a
Possibly
robot.
an android. No, you're not a robot. That's something else entirely. We'll talk about that.
That's called the forward tease.
But yeah. So at the end of this, what did y'all think of the Year of Sanderson?
It was good. I kept going back and forth on if I regretted not getting all of the boxes.
Uh-huh. Did you pick any up at Dragonsteel?
No, I did pick up through just ordering them. I did get the Cytoverse one. And I keep waffling back and forth, and if I want to get the other ones, because I reorganized my bookshelf or my storage in my craft room where I have all my Sanderson stuff. And as cool as the swag is, I don't want to just have tons of stuff just sitting there that never ever gets used.
Right.
And so it's kind of back and forth. And I mean,
I totally get it.
So
there's
it's all
a
really
lot
cool.
of stuff,
and I love it, but I'm like, I don't know that I need it. And it would probably just get put in a box and just sit there. And so I worry about doing it. So, but I keep maybe wanting the pins because I already have a thing with all the pins that I do have, but I don't have all of them. So I don't know. I mean, it was really cool. And if I was better about displaying the stuff, and I definitely would have wanted to make sure I got all the boxes, but
No, I get it. There are certain things, like certain boxes were to me better than others. Like there were certain boxes I was more excited about than others. Obviously, the Mistboard box sold out like immediately, so that
I didn't jump on that, and I'm a little sad about that one. But then I also don't know where I'd put those bookends because my bookcases we need to get another bookcase because they're too full.
Right.
So.
Well, and the funny thing is they're very, very black, and my bookshelf is black, so I actually have them sitting on top of a different bookshelf.
You could always put just some white paper or something behind them.
Yeah, but
If you got a solution, then you got a
I've
solution.
already got a solution, so I'm happy with it. There were some really cool things. Like we mentioned earlier, the ones that are remaining will be on sale. I think starting tomorrow. So, if there's one in particular, but I think it's a good way to look at it is just if there's one in particular you want, order it.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, there are some that are more exciting to people, to specific people than others, and so if you really, really want those,
then do it.
Coasters from Warbreaker, or if you want those seals from Elantris
So,
or the Emperor's Soul, awesome. Check it out. Again, I don't know which ones are still available because they're
yeah.
But
It's in flux.
Mm-hmm.
No, Lux is a different book.
No, flux.
Oh, okay. But
there was the thing that I really liked about this was, other than the hiccup at the very start, which some of that was not their fault, 'cause we did have those weird polar vortex storms that delayed a lot of stuff for a lot of people. But other than that, it went off pretty well without a hitch.
Very well.
Mm-hmm.
Once they got all of the printing issues out of the way, everything was incredibly smooth.
Mm-hmm. And they were very quick to fix it as fast as they could. So it wasn't that they just let it linger and linger and linger. They were actively trying to fix it. So for 3 and 4, they made sure those were ready way ahead of time, so they did not have the delays that happened with 1 and 2. And 2 wasn't as bad as 1.
Mm-hmm. Props to Kara and her team, because wow, this was a gargantuan undertaking, and they nailed it.
Yeah. No, the thing I found most interesting about just that aspect is, normally something like this, where you have one thing after another, you have one thing go wrong at the start, it's typically going to kind of cause some bad dominoes to fall. But it was very impressive how that first hiccup didn't really cause knock-on effects. They did an impressive time scrambling.
I think the first hiccup actually caused them to go into overdrive and make it so that the later books were right on time.
Yeah, they were like, no, we need to make sure we've got it buttoned down and ready, like early.
Yeah, again, it was very impressively handled.
The other part of the Kickstarter that I found really interesting, that because this is something that Brandon didn't really talk about until after, he started talking about fulfillment and how they weren't doing this through the ebooks through Audible and stuff like that. It was one of those things where I thought to myself, like, at the end of this, I'm like, I feel like, look, on one end, one author the size of even the size of Brandon, that's a drop in the bucket for a company like Amazon, who's one of the biggest in the world. At the same time, I feel some of the things he was trying to prove, like about how outdated the publishing industry is and the kinds of things you can do, I think he really showed that there is a way to accomplish these very different things.
Right.
I mean, the quality of the books themselves is jaw-dropping.
Gorgeous.
They're pretty.
Well, and again, they were able to do some things that you don't typically see. For example, even though I would say it's probably looked at as the least interesting of the stories, Frugal Wizard's Guide, all of those margin drawings and the art styles shifting in and out, it was so good. It was beautiful. Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, that is one of the most stunning just collections of art and it's beautiful.
It's a very pretty book about art, which is even better. It's just like Inception there.
Well, it just makes you wonder, like, because he's done this, as he does future Kickstarters for Leatherbound and such, who knows what they could do with that?
Well, they for a later thing, they do say they're going through backer. Well, they're going through backer kit, not even Kickstarter.
Yeah,
for the Leatherbound.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering if I'm wondering if going forward, if they're like if they have another book that has a lot of potential for artwork stuff. Like, imagine if something like Warbreaker had released in this era as opposed to the, earlier in Brandon's career.
Well, and the thing is, Warbreaker itself was experimental. Because Warbreaker, he released for free on his website multiple versions of it and then published it. And just because that's, again, I feel like that's kind of the origin of this. This is Brandon saying, what can we do? Like, he's experimenting with everything. It's kind of interesting to watch the process and to be part of the process, as a consumer.
Yeah.
It was just, as was pointed out by Taylor in our chat, even with all these delays, they were always communicating well with us.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that hasn't changed. Team Dragonsteel has always had top-notch communication.
Yep.
Taylor's on fire tonight, getting a lot of notable comments. But well, and then now speaking of crowdfunding, there's 2 more crowdfunding projects that are coming out this year. We already mentioned the Words of Radiance Leatherbound, which we're getting an update on tomorrow. But also, there's the Stormlight RPG that's coming out.
Yes.
So,
which is going to have 3 books.
It's going to have 3 books, and the world book that they're doing for it. It's because it's going to have the 3 books are going to be the Stormlight Handbook, which is like your player's guide / Dungeon Master's Guide combined. But then there's the World Guide. This is from what it sounds like, this is kind of the encyclopedia that everybody's been asking for.
The coffee table book or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And so I feel like it might be wise of them to have an option just to buy that, because a lot of times it would be like you can get just the player's guide or you can get all 3. And I'm like, it'd be smart to have that one be available by itself, because I think there are a lot of people who have zero interest in the RPG who would love that book.
Oh, yeah. And we don't know exactly what the 3rd one's going to be called yet.
We know it's going to be a campaign.
Yeah, but it's going to be a campaign. That's right.
And we know that the idea was brought forward by Brandon and Dan themselves. But they can't tell us the name because apparently spoilers. So
tell us the name. I want it.
I mean, that makes sense because, like, for example, the Mistborn House War expansion is the Siege of Luthadel. People are like, wait, there's a Siege of Luthadel? There's potential minor spoilers and yeah. Yes, I'm excited about the RPG. I'm obviously going to spend way too much money in that Kickstarter, just like all of the others.
I can personally recommend it because I'm one of the alpha testers. So it's good stuff.
And then,
humble brag.
Yes.
And then definitely be spending way too much money in the Words of Radiance, because there's going to be plushies. There's going to be plushies for every spread, and that's just... I don't have anywhere to display plushies, but I have impulse control problems. But yeah.
No, this year, the year of the Sanderson, I vote as an overwhelming success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I did like was how part 2, my year, other than Kickstarter.
Yeah. Oh, and
that's right.
Mentioned the other, so the other.
The Mistborn deck building game.
Yeah.
Which I'm very excited about. Yeah, because I believe that Crafty Games, their license on Mistborn has just barely expired.
Yeah, it expired at the year, I think.
Yeah, and so now Brotherwise, I believe, is going to be doing the Mistborn deck building game as well. I think they've developed a very, very positive relationship with Brandon. They've been at multiple Dragonsteels and
like I watched some of their videos about it and stuff, and so like it seems like they're good. They get on well.
There's lots of stuff coming. Lots and lots and lots of stuff.
Otherwise, it's very nice.
So Brandon is by far the year of Sanderson is done, but Brandon is not done with crowdfunding.
Oh yeah.
Well, why would he? Like, actually, I can't remember who it was. I saw because I was going, and I was bored and I was alone, I was watching a lot of interviews of things. And I can't remember who it was. Brandon was on with someone. They were talking the business of publishing and how Brandon feels. Well, one thing he's like, when I first published my book, the publishing industry wanted me to send a physical manuscript. And I'm over here like, I have been writing stories on computers since the 80s. And the publishing industry is very slow to adopt new things.
Very true.
And he actually said the idea to start doing the idea of these more premium versions of the books came from, now he said, a friend of mine who is who does web comics. So I'm assuming it's Howard from
Probably
that
Howard,
description. Probably Howard
Right.
Taylor. But because what he'd do is publish for free, and then the books he'd put out as the collector. And in that way, the people who want to buy the fancier collector's edition things sort of subsidize the rest of the community. And so Brandon's sort of now experimenting with that, and how he can definitely start to, you can see how he's starting to do that, where he wants to, like he'll put out his normal versions that are there, the trade paperbacks and stuff, but puts out the fancier ones for the people who want that for their display. Right. And that lets him keep the normal books as cheap as he can get them, so that it fuels the fandom. But the people who want something a little fancier, they can get it. And thankfully, Brandon's probably not going to put out 5 books in the same year again, so it shouldn't be as expensive for us going forward.
Well, and again, the early step for that was Warbreaker, because he published it for free, and then he had a physical copy for those who wanted it. Yeah. And he's taken that to the next step, like you said, with the deluxe editions. Yeah. The other thing, I've seen a few people asking, why does Brandon crowdfund, considering how big he is, what he's got going? And I think there are a few reasons, because, for example, with Words of Radiance, he already has the books. They're printed. He's signing them already. But one of the main things that he said is he just likes the features that these crowdfunding sites have set up, where, you can have the not the push goals, but like the add-ons and everything. It's just, it's a good storefront. And so that, I think that's one of the main reasons. Plus, there is power beyond the hype machine. I mean, there's power behind the hype machine that comes with crowdfunding, because suddenly you feel like I'm a part of something, and so you join in and you start spending your money.
Well, I mean, think of how the entire year Sanderson started with that. What was it? I Must Come Clean or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I've been lying to you.
That's what it was. And how important it was. He's like, just spread this around. Don't spoil it for anyone, so that they can get. Heck, I was trying to explain this. I was trying to explain this whole thing to my grandparents, and they're in their 90s and they don't read fantasy. And I mean, with their cataracts, it's hard to read. But I'm trying to explain this to them. And I'm like, let me just show you this video. And even though I had already told them, that it was this, this fake out, I could tell they kind of got invested in the video. We're starting to get worried. Like, you don't even know who this guy is. What are you worried about?
Concerned. Yeah.
Yep. But the other thing that people need to recognize about the Kickstarter, because a lot of people are just like, oh, he made $42 million. No, the Kickstarter campaign made $42 million, and a huge, massive chunk of that was invested into actually producing the goodies that we got, the high quality goodies. If you've actually seen the stuff that came in these boxes, they went all in.
Yeah.
Like everything in there was like, oh, this is very, very well made, durable, and like not skimped on.
Well, to say nothing of the quality of the books.
Yeah. It was it wasn't a lot of the stuff made by the Inventor's Guide. Is that what it's?
Yes, the Inventor's Guide. They're the same people who did the Hoyd Museum at Dragonsteel.
And the Imbot adventure at Dragonsteel this year.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
which was
right.
cute.
But yeah, so it's just amazing the way this whole thing has worked out. And Brandon is really doing a good job of experimenting with all these different methods and stuff. I could only imagine what he's going to do with Project Dragonsteel. But we'll talk about that in a bit. Okay, so Brandon then went on to talk about his year, 2024. It's funny because it was sort of simple. January, he did Defiant revisions. And then he wrote Stormlight.
That's
the
like
whole
that's
year.
for the checks notes next 11 months.
Yeah.
Well, and that's not to throw too much shade at George R.R. Martin. I was working on this one book the entire year. This is a Brandon Sanderson. I was working on this one book the entire year, which lets you know the immensity.
Yeah,
the immensity of that book.
Well, and it's also the longest of the Stormlight Archive books. So. And the shortest one of those is just over 1,000 pages. So
all of them are dangerous to drop.
They're chunky, but we love it.
If you have, small rodent pets, don't ever drop this book because
if you have small canine pets or feline pets, they're dangerous.
Yeah, don't just be careful. Yeah.
Indeed.
Like you're going to injure a schnauzer
or anything else.
Okay, that's a quote right there. You're going to injure a schnauzer.
I don't know how to spell schnauzer, full disclosure.
Oh, don't worry, I can do that for you.
I'm going to look that up right now. How to
SCHNAUZER.
There we go. I think I got it. I was considering getting a schnauzer years and years and years ago before we got Rosie. So
Rosie perks up. You what?
We're gonna get another dog.
All right, so we move on to updates on the primary projects.
Oh yeah.
These are the big ones, the stuff that's kind of been at the forefront. First is Stormlight. We already mentioned Wind and Truth is done in the rough draft, and it's almost done with 2.0. Sad news, Horneater.
Yep.
I was looking forward to this one, but apparently we are not getting this as part of the Words of Radiance Leatherbound. Yeah. I totally get his reasoning, though. It's one of those, as soon as he said we weren't getting it, I started getting a little upset. I read his reasoning. I was like, all right, I'm good. I'm fine with that.
That makes sense. Have it as a nice palate cleanser. Not that
exactly.
Mistborn and Elantris aren't wonderful things, but it's let's change it up.
But we've seen how Brandon works. Like sometimes he'll be working on something and he'll need to step away. That's how we got Bands of Mourning.
Yeah.
Because he was stepping away from Shadows of Self.
Yeah. Well, and Emperor's Soul and Alloy of Law were just out of nowhere too.
And Legion and Alcatraz and
yeah.
Hey, no. I'm not going to try and mess with Brandon's process.
No. It's one of those, it's a shame that we'll have to wait till 2026, it's looking like. But
the hard part, though, is after Wind and Truth comes out, then Stormlight goes on a big old hiatus.
And we're not going to get another book for like 2 years.
We're not going to get another major Cosmere book for another 6 years.
Well, that's not
another major Brandon Cosmere book.
Because I know
so we're gonna get at least on his timeline he listed was they're expecting to get the White Sand novel in 2025, and that's one I know we have the comic books, and I'm a huge comic book nerd.
I'm very glad that we're getting the prose.
Yeah, version. I don't think Brandon's works that were originally written to be
prose
books adapted as well to the comic book format as he hoped. If I was honest,
well, it got better with each subsequent volume, but it's still.
And I think the magic type lends itself well to it, but it wasn't translated as well to the story.
I agree.
Yeah. I think it's just one of those things that if you want to make a comic book, I think it's best to set out to make a comic book first.
I agree. I wouldn't necessarily call it a failed venture, but there was a lot of things that they probably learned from it.
Yeah, and so we'll get that at least, and then in 2026 was when they're anticipating Horneater. So
No, I'm talking about and we'll talk about this in a second. We're almost there. So let's move on into Mistborn, because this is where things kind of get.
This is where
wonky.
Jordan started doing the meme of the guy rubbing his hands together.
Yes.
Yeah. So Era 2 is done. Era 3 is Brandon's next big project. He's calling it Ghostbloods, and so Jordan starts salivating immediately,
Giggling maniacally.
And so the plan is he will start writing that on January 1st, 2025, because 2024 is mostly revisions of Stormlight 5, and then of course like you said, the White Sand prose rewrite. But we're jumping ahead a little bit because it bears talking about here. Brandon has said he doesn't want to publish any of the Era 3 books or the new Elantris books until they're all written.
Oh man.
So what's going to happen is we're going to have a drought of major Cosmere books, major Brandon written Cosmere books for about 6 years.
It's going to be weird. We've been spoiled.
And then we're going to start feasting.
It's going to be year after year after year.
Well, it's going to be 2 in a year.
2? Oh, was it 2 in a year?
Well, because he said starting in December 2028, Ghostbloods 1, summer 2029, Elantris 2, December 2029, Ghostbloods 2, summer 2030, Elantris 3, December 2030, Ghostbloods 3. So we'll be getting Elantris and Mistborn subsequently. Now, Brandon has said this is all subject to change. He has trouble planning things out this far in advance, but
that's the
we can hope.
Yeah.
Well, there's one thing on the schedule that has me very excited. December 2027, TBD.
Yes, I can't tell you.
Oh man.
Now that might just be because he has other Cosmere books that he wants to write. It might be, because he's listed. He says, there'll be like the Silence Divine and the Aether World books and all of those. Those still exist. So I'm very interested to see how exactly what happens with the Aether World, because Aether of Night was the origin of the Aethers, but from what we've seen of what he's doing with Aethers now, it is completely different. Because like the Aether World seems to be very much Indian inspired. Indian as in East Asia Indian.
Yeah.
Was the original not like that then?
Not at all. It was classic medieval fantasy.
Yeah. I'm glad he's gone that direction, just because we have a good amount of that classic fantasy in a lot of his other books. And so I like him pulling
from other not genres, but cultures, other mythologies and stuff. Yeah.
And I mean, there's some different YouTubers that I watch, and it's always really interesting to see all these different mythologies that I've never learned about. And I'm like, that's a really cool story. I should, in my magical time that I don't know where, look into more of these other mythologies more than just the European centric ones.
Well, it's like when even not just European centric ones though, because like I knew Greek mythology like crazy. And when I was probably 10 or 11, I discovered Norse mythology, and I said, there's something now these days Norse mythology is like all scattered all over the place. But back in the day, Norse mythology was sort of not known.
Yeah. Well, and that's something in Daniel Green, his most recent interview with Brandon, they talked about how the internet is really changing things, and how we're going to start getting, like, we're already seeing can't remember, an adaptation of the 3 Body Problem, which is a Chinese series that's coming out. And Brandon actually made the prediction. He thinks we're going to start to see a lot of Indian stuff start to break out of, just that little bubble, because the internet is going to make it so that, and the internet plus AI is going to make it much easier for these authors to get their works translated. Whereas before it would have been a huge, barrier to entry for them because of just the price of getting something like that translated.
Yeah, and I mean, and the Bollywood is already it's more niche, but it's still getting bigger.
It's bigger than Hollywood in terms of how much it makes.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've got to think
you've got a much larger base population.
Yeah,
It's a weird thing. It's very siloed off, but it's a big silo.
Right.
Yeah, and there's like a segment of the US and other places that also like love Bollywood and just eat it up.
Well, but that's starting to, things like RRR are starting to poke through, and if you haven't seen it, it's insane and awesome. You should definitely do it.
Now that has nothing to do with George R.R., right?
No.
Okay. Or J.R.R.?
No.
Okay.
It's the best line of the George R.R. and James R. Tolkien rap battle.
Oh goodness.
Where Tolkien tells him, "You're a pirate. You even stole my RR."
Arr. Oh man.
When is Brandon going to, be awarded his inner R's? When will he become Brandon R.R. Sanderson?
I think he has to cut off the head of George R.R. Martin. I think it's a Highlander situation.
No.
There can be only one.
That's why Brandon got all those swords.
Oh gosh.
Oh no, we're getting dark here. Okay.
Speaking of new mythologies.
Oh, boy.
Okay, but yeah, it's going to be a while till we get that, but there are going to be some other things that are fed in, because Brandon has said we're getting Cosmere stuff from Isaac and from Dan.
Yeah,
and
so we'll have a little bit that way.
We'll get Horn Eater, but it's going to be very, very.
It's going to be weird. We've been spoiled for a couple years now, where it's just like a lot.
The thing that I find that I'm most excited of on these, because we're also getting a lot of the Skyward Flight books and stuff like that. I find myself most excited for Dan's project, even though I don't know what it is. Just because I'm someone who read the I Am Not a Serial Killer series, and it messed me up. But it messed me up in a way I enjoyed. Now, I don't think we're going to get as dark as that, but we haven't truly done horror in the Cosmere. And
Silence is, Silence the Forest.
That's the closest we have.
The closest we've gotten, and it's not quite. It's
and so I would like to see, because the Cosmere is so big, you can start adapting different genres of storytelling to the Cosmere, and I'm very intrigued to see where that goes.
So there's a part.
Sorry, especially because you see, like, Tress is a very different genre, and Yumi and the Nightmare Painter is far more romancy and stuff. And so it's he's been experimenting with different styles and genres, and so it's kind of fun to see that too.
There's a part of me that agrees with you, Jordan, and there's a part of me that actually hopes that that it's not a horror centric one, because Dan has done non-horror stuff.
Yeah. I want it to be a little darker.
I know. I've read a few things that Dan has written, and every single one of them has affected me mentally, like has put me into a weird headspace. I read I Am Not a Serial Killer. I got about halfway through Mr. Monster, and I said, I may have finished Mr. Monster. And I've just said, I think I need to be done. Dan is too good at this. And then I decided, I was like, I'll give it another shot. And I listened to Dark One Forgotten. And it put me in a messed up space again.
I need to get that. I still haven't done that.
Now, I've also, read some, Dan's done some sci-fi stuff, and I've listened to the Moonbreaker audio drama things that Dan wrote. So Brandon did the world building for the game Moonbreaker, just as a reminder. And Dan wrote some scripts for audio dramas based on characters. They're fantastic. And so I'm just like, so I know that Dan can write stuff that won't break me.
You're just like, please just lean that way. That's what Bill would prefer.
But and so I'm kind of hoping that it's more in that area, because I love Dan's writing. Again, I had to stop reading a lot of Dan's stuff, not because Dan isn't a good writer, but because Dan is too good of a writer.
So I actually have a theory for what the story is. We don't know anything about it. I think it's going to be the story that happens on Mythos. This, whatever that world is that got mentioned by Kelsier.
I thought about that, except for when Brandon was listing off things that are going to be coming out, he listed Mythos, and then he said, and also the Isaac and Dan stuff.
Did he?
Which might it might
missed
be
it.
him being smart about not making it obvious, but it also could be.
I might have missed
I don't
that.
know. I don't remember that either. But there were a lot of words.
Oh no, it's various Cosmere books I might write someday. And then he says the Night Brigade, Dragonsteel, Silence Divine, the Grand Apparatus, Mythos, the Ether World book series. Wow, this list keeps growing. And that was those were listed after unnamed Dan and Isaac Cosmere novels.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So that's the end of part 5.
Darn it.
So I don't think Mythos is going to be Dan. It may be, and of course Dan is going to have an influence on it because he's Brandon's other brain at this point.
Mhm.
So
I want to get so good at something that I need another brain.
but yeah, not just get so good, but be so successful at something
that you can afford to have someone be your other
Yeah.
brain.
well, and that you to because you're so successful to properly grow with your success, you need another brain. Okay, so Cytoverse is done. Jancy is now going to be picking up the rest of it, and it sounds like this is the only non-Cosmere thing that Brandon's really going to keep his hands on.
Yeah, he said that pretty directly, that he's like, I'm gonna be this is my only non-Cosmere thing I'm gonna be focusing on.
He's given it to Jancy. This is now Jancy's series to play with, but this is the one he's still actively going to be involved with. There are other things that he's just handed off and said, this is yours.
Yeah.
So
I also love that he has a section called the 4 Secret Projects where he has to just let people know there's not more secret projects.
Really?
Yep.
That was it.
Well, and it's not just that, it's also these are standalones. Don't expect sequels to these, because of course everyone's going to be like, we want more Tress, we want more Yumi and Nikuro, we want more Sunlit Man. And it's like, and what's going on? Like, what else is happening with Frugal Wizard's Guide?
I want my sentient bananas.
I saw them at Dragonsteel. I'm satisfied. I got my sentient bananas.
I still really think that there's potential in the future. Now, I think it's further off that as Brandon gets a little older, that
this will be Brandon's retirement series.
Well, there's that too. I think we're going to start getting more spin-offs of people who he trusts getting to do stuff. I don't know why. Just in my head, I still think there is a pirate story on Tress that someone's going to be able to do.
What I just thought? I could totally see him handing Yumi and the Nightmare Painter to Charlie.
Ooh,
because she's a romance fantasy author, and she's very good at it. So, Charlie, if you're listening, I'm in your court on that one. I will back you up.
We'll stand behind you like your enforcers.
So if you start that campaign, we will boost the signal.
And you can't stop a signal.
But yeah, so the secret projects are just individual stories, but they're very good ones. And we still may see characters popping up in other things. Like we saw Shy show up in a redacted book.
Yes.
So secondary projects, Elantris.
Should we take a break here before we go to that?
Call. Very good. Oh yeah, I lost track of time. Wow. Okay. Yeah, we'll take a break.
Because the State of the Sanderson's so much fun.
It is meeting. We may end up having to do a second episode if we don't get all the way through this, because we're already 53 minutes in. All right. So yeah, we'll see y'all in a few minutes. Have fun. And we're back. Welcome again. Let's just dive back into what we were talking about. So secondary projects.
Yes.
So Elantris is not going to be a secondary project for long.
Ta-da!
I'm so excited. I feel like Elantris gets such short shrift.
It does.
Now, the one thing that does concern me about these, Brandon's writing style has changed drastically since Elantris.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering what that's going to mean for these new books.
Yeah.
Hopefully it means I like them.
That's right. You didn't really enjoy Elantris.
In particular, I was really worried about the second books because he said it was going to focus on the 2 kid characters.
The cousins,
and I wanted those kids to get drop kicked because they annoyed me so much.
But
And
now
so,
we know, spoiler, 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 that one of those kids becomes a ghost blood.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, and so, but it's more like, and while that's awesome, yes, more to the point is the fact that Brandon has improved as a writer, and I haven't wanted to dropkick any children ever since Elantris, so I think we'll
That's
be fine.
another title option, but I don't know that we can say
No,
I
that's
haven't wanted to
mean.
drop kick any other children. No. Yeah.
I don't hate Elantris. I really like 1/3 of Elantris a lot. I'm miffed on one, and another. Brandon really needed to improve on how he wrote women, and so
In episode 1 of our show, Brandon says, or I mean, Jordan says it's like saying it's his least favorite steak.
yeah,
You still like it, but it's just not.
yeah, it's just not as good as what came after, and that's fine because it's his first book. So I'm actually I've gone from someone who didn't want Elantris sequels to very interested to see what he'll do with them.
I'm hoping, since it's supposedly going to be those two kids who are the main characters, that they will have aged up quite a bit, because then it'll be a little better than compared to dealing with preteens, little kids.
We also know that this is going to start messing with what was originally the canonized timeline, because Brandon, because having them interact more in Mistborn, it's going to change things around. Brandon said.
Oh, really?
So like we don't know, like it. I don't think Elantris is going to be as far earlier than other books as it originally was planned to be,
because otherwise the age thing wouldn't work as well.
And like, you know, there have been all sorts of ways to age people up longer than they should live, but who knows?
We don't know it's all wibbly wobbly.
It's wibbly wobbly right now. So on a completely different note, Songs of the Dead, formerly Death by Pizza, also known as Death Without Pizza. This is when it is ready and sent to publishers, and Brandon is going to hand everything else from it off to Peter Aurelian.
Aurelian. I don't know.
Okay, had you ever heard of him?
Mm-mm.
Okay,
only in Brandon talking.
Yeah, just in
previous States of the Sanderson. Because Brandon, he's been brought up several times in previous States of the Sanderson, so I don't.
But yeah, I just remember, like, he's a rock. Was he a rock singer or something?
He's a metal guy.
Metal guy, yeah. So.
But yeah, so, and it sounds like he may show up on Brandon's live stream at some point, which
would be cool.
But
I love that Songs from the Dead is back from the dead.
But yeah, I also think it's a good call. Brandon is basically just handing this one off entirely, saying, "Okay, I helped you world build. Now go play in the playground."
Yeah, and like it'll be interesting to see Brandon's influence on the necromancer thing, because I haven't seen him do a necromancer like that kind of magic as much. So it'll be interesting.
Yep. Let's see. White Sand, we've already talked about in July. He's going to start making a definitive prose version. And he also, in quotes, maybe we'll have this one for Dragonsteel 2025. Which is good, because with a 6-year gap between major Cosmere stories and each of the Dragonsteels being centered around a book release, I'm like, you know what? This one would be a very interesting centerpiece book for Dragonsteel.
Yeah, because I mean, I only remember seeing like one person dressed up as Kenton. Like that was the only White Sand outfit we saw.
Yeah.
Well, and it's going to be interesting because so far we've only had Cytoverse and Mistborn focused Dragonsteels.
Right.
This year we'll get
Stormlight.
We'll get Stormlight, but that'll be the only Stormlight focused one for quite a while.
For 10 years.
Yeah. Well, unless Horn Eater's the focus of one of them, but but other than that, I think it's gonna be the other stuff as well. Is gonna be, you know, nice to throw in, but I'm very interested because White Sand is one of the ones that we just don't have as much on because it's been in the graphic form, and you just can't get across as much information that way.
It's not just we haven't gotten as much information, even though it's been out for a while now. So few people in the fandom have been exposed to it.
Yeah.
To
It
the
was
point where
harder
people
to
don't
get
know what the
into.
actual name is because it's white sand. White sand. Sand.
It's really easy to put the S
I'm the
on there.
one that no, there's 3 books. It's White Sands.
That's like a resort, isn't it?
So
Could be.
White Sands is actually a place in the Anne of Green Gables books on Prince
really?
Edward Island.
It's a very interesting and bold crossover that I wasn't anticipating.
Oh man.
I mean, we do have a bookish redhead already, so
It's very. I mean, they're both kind of sassy when they want to be.
but yeah. So
Oh.
but yeah, White Sand. This is my little nitpicky pet peeve. It's white sand.
And I have been very careful whenever I type it out because of you, Bill, that I make sure to not add the extra S.
I actually that makes me. I'm sorry that I've.
Oh, it's
been
okay.
As
I was glad.
insufferable enough to actually make that.
No,
happen.
it was more that I didn't realize I was doing it wrong other times, and so like you pointing it out a couple times when we go, oh, it is just singular. So I need to make sure I keep it singular.
I'm going to keep doing it wrong. Not out of any spite. I just know what's going to happen. So I'm just setting expectations.
This is Jordan actively creating the Mandela effect.
He's like, no, the bar, it's down here.
Look, if at first you don't succeed, lower your expectations.
Brandon may not have written Trolls, but he's certainly developed some in his fandom.
This is all your fault. You brought me into this. You are at best indirectly culpable.
Can I go back and undo that? Control Z, Control Z.
This is going to be one of the worst uses of time powers ever.
Oh boy.
Okay, moving on to Dark One. So Dan had some mental health stuff that he was going through.
Mm-hmm.
I completely sympathize with that. I am 100% behind, and I am so glad that he's gotten that handle, and it sounds like he's moving forward with
better,
Dark
yeah.
One. You know what that kind of brings to mind? I'm like, Dan is suffering from what I have suffered from reading Dan.
Oh.
You think you had it hard? He was the one living in it.
And I get it. I totally get it. And so I don't begrudge him taking a break because I can only, like, I've only been in that headspace for brief amounts of time and he lives there.
Yeah.
No, again, Dan is a phenomenal writer. And I am excited. I'm excited to look at Dark One because Dark One Forgotten messed me up, but it's because, again, Dan is a good writer, and I'm excited to see the prose form of this come out. I do have the graphic novel. Again, I stopped reading it because I was just like, I know where I'm going to go with this.
I need to listen to it still.
I'll finish it someday. The audio, so Dark One Forgotten is excellent. I feel like the quality of the audio drama is just so good.
And I've listened to some other scary-ish stuff, and there were times that I was glad I was listening to that scary stuff, like in the middle of the daytime when it's bright and sunny, and I'm like, oh, good, I've got this scary, but I know it's not actually real, and it's okay.
But it's not necessarily scary because that's not how Dan does horror. Dan isn't just, ooh, monster gonna come get me, gotta run. Like,
yeah,
he messes with your brain. He gets into the head.
Oh yeah, so
he's very good at sympathy for the devil.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think I've finished the Dan Cleaver series, but
John Cleaver.
Mm-hmm. Dan's John Cleaver series.
Yeah.
But I got more of the way through it. I think I only have like maybe a book or two left.
Mm-hmm.
So. But I mean, he doesn't say exactly what the new one's going to be. Just that it's
basically
written.
The graphic novel kind of went in a different direction than they were planning the story to go.
Oh yeah.
And so I think this is sort of a return to what they wanted Dark One to be.
Yeah.
And
they had to add in the 2 characters from Forgotten, Dark One Forgotten, apparently.
Well, it was originally supposed to be a trilogy. And they decided to shrink it down into a much more streamlined single book just because that's how it was working out. But they loved the characters from Dark One Forgotten so much that they're pulling them into this book. So the scope of it is expanding.
Yeah, it's a big book, but it's just 1 compared to 3.
I'm actually glad of that, just because Dark One Forgotten is very interesting because it sort of gives you a story, but it leaves you with so many questions. And having them kind of involved in the story, I like having that link because it will clear up some stuff, I think, to me, and why it was going on in Forgotten. So if we haven't talked specifically about it, the audio drama Dark One Forgotten is told in the form of a podcast. It's a girl who's doing a podcast about like she's a music major and she's looking into this woman. And obviously I'm somewhat biased in that area. I love listening to podcasts, and I love just the way they've done it, and the drama is very good. So again, it's worth checking out if you haven't done it. It's available, I think, on Audible. So
yeah.
And then what?
I want to talk about Super Awesome Danger.
Yeah, Jordan's ready for the next one. If you've seen the thumbnail for this
he
episode.
just shoved all the boy words together, literally.
Yep.
All right,
Well,
Jordan,
I think-
why don't you take charge of this?
Okay, first of all, the fact that this is based off of something that his boys kind of were coming up with is awesome.
It reminds me of Axe Cop.
Yes, but I love the idea that it's a story about like a video game, and there's part of me that is like, wait, are we going to get some sort of like co-op video game out of this? I really would like that.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
But I also love the drawing that
of Robog.
Where the first one, not the one in the thumbnail,
but
like
his kid's drawing of Robog.
Yeah. But first of all, it's like it says basic in that type. I don't know what type is, but it's a symbol that the man who kills him will know. But HP 65 attacks wire lightning.
Lightning,
probably lightning. Yeah. And then 20 ultimate strike. Robog 631. And I just look at this and I'm like, I remember drawing crap like this as a kid. I feel this image so much.
Like it's one of those things
like this in my house.
It's one of those things you look at it as like
100% invested in this.
Well, it's like this is very, very Pokemon inspired, or Digimon, or Yu-Gi-Oh, or some sort of trading card game. Because you've got types and HP and attack. It's like there is definitely a stat-based system here.
The other thing that it makes me think of is the newer Jumanji movies, because they end up in video games.
True.
The isekai.
Mm-hmm.
I was obsessed with video game isekai when I was a kid. Captain N, the Game Master. It doesn't hold up. It is not a high quality show, but I devoured it as a child. No, I devoured Captain N, the Game Master as a child. I was obsessed with the idea of going into a video game and experiencing. Oh gosh, I loved the idea. I drew pictures like this when I was a kid too.
Anyway, but yeah, so like they're gonna have Ben McSweeney and Haley Lazo do the art, so that's pretty cool.
Yep.
Now, was it Ben or Haley that did the
Ben
art?
Did the Shalon sketchbooks?
Yeah, but I mean, do we know
Haley did the Alcatraz books?
Yeah. Do we know who did the image of Robog though?
The little drawing, it doesn't say.
I couldn't find. I love the look that they're going for here.
It sounds like Ben's doing a layout and Haley's doing pencils. The
ink,
style
so
looks very similar to Alcatraz, the new edition of Alcatraz. So I'm guessing that's Haley.
Yeah, I'm really digging the design they've got going here. This is really nice.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Well, and the best thing is I now have another outlet to try and corrupt my nephews with and get them into Sanderson stuff.
Yes.
There you go.
Good.
And I just can't imagine how insane my conversations are going to be and how confused like my mother's going to be when she hears me talking with them about super awesome danger and she thinks I'm having a stroke.
Oh man, I think my kids would probably be all over it too. There's like a show on Netflix that they were watching too that I cannot remember what it was exactly, but
I find it funny that the name is Super Awesome Danger and the acronym is SAD. So
oh
So sad.
man.
but yeah, no, this is going to be so much fun. I'm very much looking forward to this. And I'm very interested in hearing like what kind of input his kids have on it, because that's going to make it even more fun, I think.
Especially because they get to see something that they thought up like come to fruition,
and that the characters are based on them loosely.
Yeah. The other thing, and this is just I like Brandon in this, where he calls this Secret Project 0, just so that people don't think they've missed one.
So they're like, wait, Secret Project 5? No, Secret Project
No,
0.
It's different.
Secret Project -1. Wait, no.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, it sounds like an action movie title, Secret Project 0.
It's a Mega Man fanfic.
Really is.
Okay, well, let's move to the minor projects. This will go pretty quick. Warbreaker, we got nothing.
And Arithmetic, you got nothing.
Reckoners, Alcatraz, and Legion, those are done. Although Stephen Bowles, who is the guy who co-authored Lux with him, is interested in doing more. I would love to see more because it ended on such a dark cliffhanger that I'm man. You got to give me a palate cleanser here. It's so unsettling. The original, which is what he did with Mary Robinette Kowal, they're eventually going to get an actual ebook of it, because right now it's audio exclusive.
And I loved that audio, was so good. So if you get the chance, then get the audio. It's really good.
Dan and Isaac are going to have their Cosmere novels, which is fun.
Nikki Savage, it's on the way.
I like that Brandon said, we're doing this slowly and we're doing it right. Love it. I love that Brandon is willing. Like, the thing that's cool, Brandon has these big sweeping ideas. And a lot of people who have those ideas are like, okay, we got to make it happen now. And Brandon's willing to say, let's do it right. I love that. Which is one of the things, I don't want Dragonsteel to grow too big to the point where you can't do that. Because like a lot of times when it gets big, they're like, okay, we got to come out with the next thing. I like that Brandon is very, very precious about his process, his time. And he's just like, no, I'm going to do it this way because I can afford to do it this way, rather than I'm not going to do it this way because I can't afford to do it this way.
I mean, he literally opened up this entire article with a story about that, where after he got one of the Wheel of Time, or after he finished up Wheel of Time, and someone else who was one of his peers was telling him, all right, you're going to have, you need
sign
to
up for another trilogy, or
and get that going. And his response was, it's like, no, because
not what I want to do.
Well, it's not right. It's not what Wheel of Time needs. It's not what Robert Jordan wanted done. And I can't do that in good conscience. And I think he was quoted as saying, more isn't always better.
Yeah.
There's an episode of Frasier where he keeps talking about less is more. And then he's planning a wedding and he starts blowing everything up. And they're like, I thought you said less is more. He says, but if less is more, think how much more will be. And it's just like, you could tell this is where you're going off the deep end. And Brandon refuses to do that. And I love it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Isaac is working on Nikki Savage and Dan is working on who knows what. And then there's other Cosmere books that Brandon's got in the works. The Night Brigade, which was teased at the end of The Sunlit Man.
Yeah.
Dragonsteel, which we know we're waiting for. This is the Hoyd origin story. This is the name of his company.
Yeah.
This is the name of his senior thesis. Like, this is the beginning. This is the story of the Shattering. This is why the Cosmere happened. But then the Silence Divine, that's the Ashen story. Then the Grand Apparatus, which is one that he just sort of dropped, and he said, He just dropped that name, and
Yeah, he
we're like,
dropped it in the middle of
wait.
this of the spoiler Q&A where someone was asking about Canticle, and he confirmed it's artificially made, and then he just said, if you think this is impressive, wait till you see the grand apparatus.
Yeah.
And to which everyone's like, making
The
noises.
what?
Then two more questions later, someone's like, what's the grand apparatus?
I'm just gonna change my question to that because this
That's
one
an
said-
immediate Raffo.
And he's like, Rappo, give him the card.
Speaking of Raffo, I actually saw somebody on one of the Brandon Sanderson collector pages specifically just looking for a Raffo card. I'm like, that's kind of amazing because those are collector's items.
Yeah.
Then also Mythos, the Ether World, and he says the list is growing. My, which I was like, hey, that's a Cytoverse saying that. My. And then there's a section called Mistborn Film, Hollywood, and Video Games. The film is on pause. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I have said, and I have a very unpopular opinion, I don't want to see adaptations of these things. I love them as they are, and I don't want them to be turned into something else.
I do, because I want more avenues to get people into the
I
cosmere.
have seen a lot of
And
like
I
fan-made
understand
ones on YouTube, and they've all been like just like a scene or whatever, and they've all been really, really good. And so I've always liked those, and I'm like, can we just have like that person do it? They did a good job, and they were doing it for like scene by scene, line by line, for like, and it was only like a teeny tiny bit, but like that would be awesome.
I just worry of it ending up in a point where it is the film starts to become made by committee.
Yeah, and that's what makes me worried.
You know,
the thing that really put me at ease with that was his recent comments at Dragonsteel, where he talked about how he's looking for a partner.
So when Dragonsteel animation opens up, I might go and watch it because it'll be passion price. And no, Dragonsteel animation.
And apparently
is
we're gonna start off with Tress, right?
Yeah,
that was the
like
thing. Oh,
pretty
he just dropped that grenade and walked away. Tress would be a great animated feature, wouldn't it?
Don't you think? And it's like, you can't just say that.
But to be honest, like I actually, because we've learned that a lot of people actually started with Tress now as their introduction to the Cosmere, which I always, like when I first heard that, I thought was insane because there's so much that Tress ties to, but people found it more interesting and like, oh, what an interesting little Easter egg that, you know, makes the world seem more magical to them, that they can find out more. And it makes me wonder, I'm like, that might be a good little starting project to get people more interested in what is this greater world.
Yeah, I'm actually like, especially when I read this, I was like, you know, I probably should see if I can get my mom and my sister to read Tress, because my sister did not really like Mistborn. She doesn't like dark stuff at all. And so I'm like, I don't. But I'm like, Tress is right up her alley.
There's so much optimism in it too.
And I think my mom would probably like it too. So
of course, then they'll get to the end and be like, why is there a spaceship? What?
And I'll be like, okay, we're going to have story time now.
No, as soon as Brandon said Tress would make a great animated feature, my brain just immediately goes, look at these cups. Aren't they neat?
Oh, I should do that as a TikTok. Oh man. Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, that's
I did do a video where there's like a lady talking about decluttering, and she's like, you need to get rid of all those coffee mugs, and I cut the thing and then went to me, and I'm like in my Tress outfit, and I've got all these mugs, and I'm like, it's okay, babies. The mean lady won't hurt you. It's okay. So anyway, so you can see that on my TikTok if you want to go look at it. It's fine.
Okay. Then he moves into the sections where he's looking at all the different sections of Dragonsteel. I recommend reading these yourselves just because there's a whole lot in here that I don't know really requires our input on.
Yeah. They're just given like kind of a report.
Like it's all very interesting stuff that's worth reading. So if you haven't actually read The State of the Sanderson yourself, definitely go check it out. But like a lot of it really has nothing that we can comment on.
There's one line I want to read from Isaac.
I would say a lot.
Yeah, there's one, Isaac's final line I thought was just a perfect encapsulator of what their year is, where it was just, what was a job once for a map maker scribbling away in Brandon's basement is now a much more monumental collection of projects. I felt the weight of the bridge gradually get lighter as each team member has taken a hold and lifted. We are now practicing side carry, but we're preparing for the day when we'll leap across chasms.
And that makes me excited for the Nikki Savage books.
Yes.
Because I was like, okay, this man knows how to spin a yarn. So,
yeah, I thought that was a perfect metaphor for how they're all growing as individual teams.
Yeah. Agreed. But yeah, just definitely check it out because everyone has great stuff. Dan has some interesting stuff that I think is worth, because he's been there a year now. He's promoting Dark One Forgotten. Dark One is planned for 2025, and then there's a line that Dan dropped. He says a very cool redacted is planned for 2024.
It's like
he's playing right to me as an audience. I
You
love
monster.
redacted jokes.
I also I didn't realize there was also apparently Hyper Thief.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm like, hold up. I'm bad. I still haven't read Defiant, but I hadn't heard nothing about this. But it's another short story that I'm like,
well, I think this is. I don't think really anybody had heard much about this. I think this is the first they've really mentioned Hyper Thief.
Yeah.
It's in the Cytoverse. We don't necessarily know when in the Cytoverse, because the Cytoverse now spans a large amount of time if you go back to the stories about the telephone company. That's not Perfect State. What's the other one? Elysium.
Elysium? Okay.
Defending Elysium.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know that I've read that one.
I also just like the large number of exclamation marks in Kara Stewart's portion. Fits her.
Yeah.
That woman has boundless energy.
Yeah. Kara's like a personified exclamation point.
And she's got fun like interjections. She's like, "Oh, we have like all these different things. Have you seen that ramen bowl?" And it's just like
so good.
little snippets that I'm like, "Oh, I love it. It's great."
Love my ramen bowl.
With a very cleverly placed link to make sure people can
the
go
ramen
order
bowl,
it.
yes. She does her merchandising well.
And then Brandon's sister Jane, of course, is running the Lightweaver Foundation. If you haven't checked out the Lightweaver Foundation, I can't recommend it more, because it's Brandon and Emily's charity that they're doing just to help people, and they're like, they donate so much to it. I love it.
And you can still get the ornament from this year. You can get those online still.
Lightweaverfoundation.org.
And you can still get the wooden ornaments of the 4 secret projects.
I think I saw them up, and they were I think they were also for sale on Dragonsteel books. Yeah.
Let's see.
They're definitely worth.
Because I thought I saw them earlier today.
But I think you're right.
And then most of the other stuff that we've kind of talked about as and as we've looked at Brandon's things, because a lot of these other departments kind of revolve around Brandon.
Yeah. So I think Peter of editorial says, Peter Alstrom says, like they've been, it's been crazy, but it's been really good. And then he said, we're getting beta readers and stuff are getting January 8th, are getting the last pieces of Stormlight 5. So that'll be exciting.
Yeah. Okay. Projected schedule. Yeah, this is what we can what's the word I'm looking for? Tentatively expect. So December 2024, we get Wind and Truth. That one's pretty set in stone. The farther out we get, the more, iffy
more loose it gets. Yeah.
Spring 2025, we get the first Skyward Legacy. December 2025, the White Sand novel and Dark One, which will probably be the Dragonsteel.
You said that wrong. It's what? Dark One?
Question mark.
Dark One question mark. Spring 2026, Skyward Legacy 2.
There we go. Perfect.
December, and I'm not going to pronounce, just they're implied. No. December 2026, Skyward Legacy 3. December 2026, Horn Eater. December 2027, TBD.
I'm excited for TBD.
Ooh,
What do you think it stands for?
The biggest
totally-
domino.
Oh. The bombest.
I was going to say the bomb
Dragonsteel, I don't-
divine.
I don't know. I'm not great with this off the fly.
In the
Tom-
comments,
Anyway.
please put what you think TBD stands for.
Tom Bombadil. Destructor.
No, it's a romantic play off of Tom Bombadil. It's the Tom Bombadil Diaries.
Oh, gosh. Moving on. December 2028, Ghost Bloods 1. So this is, okay, we've got a while until we
Yeah.
get our next
Oh man.
major
It's
Cosmere.
only 4 years away.
But we get spoiled. I'm so used
No,
to just
5
every
years
year.
away. No, it's 4 years away. At the shift of a year, things get weird. Okay, December 2028. Yeah. If things go to plan.
If.
All of this could be delayed. Summer 2029,
We're
Elantris
knowing
2.
Brandon, it could all somehow get moved up.
That's true. He,
It might
maybe
go faster.
Brandon will have just a shy, manic night of crafting, and he'll say, "It's finished. Oliveira 3 is done."
Just remember, he wrote 5 books in 1 year.
By accident.
Yeah, and sorry, it was actually more because he was still writing the stuff he was already telling
Yep.
us about.
He just wasn't
So-
traveling.
Oh man. No, I just keep getting this image. There's a comic of this woman who's teaching her grandmother how to use chopsticks on noodles, and the grandmother accidentally makes a scarf. She's like, "Oops, I made a scarf." And I'm picturing Brandon. "Oops, I finished another series."
Wrote some books. Other books.
We need to get a cereal for Brandon. It's like, oops, all Cosmere.
Oh no. Somebody
Uh.
did that with the Captain Crunch thing. Oh, I'll have to find that meme and put it up on the Discord. Anyway,
all
but yeah, it's
Stormlight.
Ghost Bloods 1, Elantris 2, Ghost Bloods 2, Elantris 3, Ghost Bloods 3. All the way up to 23.
And then, of course, Dan and Isaac have their Cosmere novels and Super Awesome Danger. And apparently Brandon's going to have a collection of short non-Cosmere fiction.
So we'll see.
So we'll call it Arcanum Bounded.
Arcanum adjacent bounded.
What's the word I'm looking? Mundanium Unbounded.
There we go.
And then, of course, then he has all of his publisher updates from all around the world, which, again, I have no way to comment on these, but if you're interested, definitely check it out, because there's a lot of them who
Appropriate, because
chimed in on
one of the places is the Czech Republic.
check it out.
Check.
Wonder if
And
it's going to be as cool as the Poland Mistborn one that had Eurobeat Kelsier on it.
I don't know. So what do we think of this madness? Because this is
I love
truly
it.
Madness.
But
Madness.
I'm kind of also glad
is Brandon.
this is Cosmere. I'm gonna be glad for kind of a little bit less to have to like speed read, and I really, because I'm hoping that this year I can make sure to do more rereading of things, because it's been a while since I've read Elantris. It's been a while since I've read Era 1, and I don't know. I just
I'll
wanna
be
do more
going into
reading this year.
Stormlight myself. Try and do a Stormlight reread.
Well, I'm probably gonna bop around and probably read some summaries of things just for the sake of time too. But I want to not feel as much pressure to, well, it's October, I gotta read Yumi, just like, and not that it wasn't, I loved reading it, but it was just a lot, and so it'll be nice to have less pressure that way. So
Give me more.
I know I want more, but I'm like, but I also feel overwhelmed at the same time
No.
with too much to have to talk about.
Brandon,
remember.
take the time you need,
So, yeah.
because we want the quality. And
Yes, and your health and everything else, health and
yes,
well-being, and
we
all
want
that.
you to stick around for a very long time,
Yes, so you can write all the books.
so that you can finish the Cosmere.
What we need is an adium coin, and everyone in the fandom donates a day of time for Brandon so he can extend his life.
Oh man.
All right. Yeah.
He's earned a day from me. I'll give him a day.
Well, we know Brandon likes crowdfunding. So.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh boy.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, to our listeners, we love hearing from you, so keep on sending in questions. You can ask us about the Cosmere. You can drop us your ideas for topics you'd like us to discuss during the show. And while you're at it, we would love to hear your feedback about how you think we're doing, as well as any interesting theories you might have about what's going on in the Cosmere or even at Dragonsteel, because who knows what's going on in there? They're building a castle. You can send all of your questions and suggestions in a brief, concise email to cosmerestudies@gmail.com, and we could read it as part of the show. You can also reach us at the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, P.O. Box 970063, Orem, Utah 84097. We have our own personal projects that we're working on outside of the show, so Jordan, why don't you let us know what you're up to first?
I'm doing a lot more variety on my streams as of late over on Twitch and Kick.
Yeah.
Just the name Splice Stream rhymes with ice cream. Finishing up Persona 5, starting back up with Final Fantasy 14. But the biggest thing is the return of The Shift, which is my not really competitive, casually competitive Smash teams where your teammates change all the time. It's been a ton of fun. So I hope if you like Smash, you'll join us on Fridays because I've been really enjoying The Shift.
You also left out Fire Emblem.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot. I started up Fire Emblem for the first time. And that's going to be part of, looks like people want me to call it Strategies or something like that.
Strategy. I like that. I like Strategy.
Yeah, and so where we're going to do strategy games on Saturdays.
Okay, cool. And specifically you're doing Fire Emblem Awakening, correct?
Yes, Awakening is what we're doing so far. I struggled at the beginning as I learned what the mechanics were, but I feel like I'm coming into my own now.
Awesome. Amy, how about you? What do you got going on these days?
I'm gonna try really hard to get through my backlog of stuff that I've documented but never actually put up for everybody else to see. It's kind of ridiculous. I have like 4,000 pictures on my phone, which I'm sure is not a lot to some people, but it's a lot. Anyway, my Facebook is Coincidence Cosplay and Props. My Twitter is @CoincidenceCosp because my name is too long. My Instagram is @Coincidence_Cosplay. My TikTok is @CoincidenceCosplay, all one giant word. And my website is still very sad, but I have plans and hopes to make it better. And
by sad, do you mean super awesome danger?
I mean, you look at it and you're like, it's just, yeah, I actually had a graphic designer look at it who's a Cosmere talker, and she's like, you've got good content, but and I'm like, I know it needs help. Anyway, but my website's www.coincidencecosplay.com, and I don't have all the details now, but it is very likely that I am going to have a booth at a thing on like January 20th where they're doing like local vendors and stuff. So if people want to come buy things there and you are local, then you could do that.
Awesome.
Where would that be?
Provo. I think it's in Provo, but we will have our podcast again before. So
that sounds too far for me to make it.
Too far for you guys. Anyway, but that's me. So yeah.
Amy, just so you know, over the Christmas break, I was in my brother listens to the show while he works in his wood shop, and he was listening to one of our more recent podcasts. And as soon as you got to, because my name is too long, he sort of moved his head along with it. I was just like, it's a thing.
Oh dear.
So he took joy from it. So
I was worried he cut himself or something because he got distracted or whatever. I was like, don't tell me I cussed woodworking injuries.
No.
Just okay.
As for myself, I do have another podcast with my friend Dylan where we talk about board games. The show is called The Innkeeper's Table, and we put new episodes every other Friday. Our most recent episode was a game spotlight of a game that we have played on this show, Bring Your Own Book.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a fun spotlight. It's definitely worth checking out. We had a mention or two, I think, of this podcast. So if you want a little bit of crossover there, you could definitely go check that out. For those of our listeners who want to support the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, but you can't become a patron just yet, we'd love it if you would let your friends know about the show. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and to like and subscribe over on youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. And if you would toss us a good review wherever you listen to us, we would love that. If you want to comment on the videos, we would love that as well. And of course, you can head over to store.streamelements.com/Cosmere Studies to buy merch. Final thoughts on the state of the Sanderson.
Good job, Dragonsteel.
It's awesome
And Brandon.
seeing this company grow. And another reminder. Please, everyone, start watching the YouTube videos. We're trying to get monetized this year.
The state of the Sanderson is busy. That's what I have discovered. Sanderson is busy.
And
I'm
it's
excited
not
about it.
slowing down.
Nope.
It's just changing.
So, in addition to the live episodes of the show that stream on youtube.com/Cosmere Studies every 2 weeks on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, listeners can find our videos on YouTube or audio versions of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and just about any other service that carries podcasts by searching for Cosmere Studies. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook under the profile @Cosmere Studies. For our next episode in 2 weeks, we're going to start getting back to some of our regular discussions of Brandon's work with a look at Hoyd's story of Mission. So make sure to join us for the discussion when we stream it live in 2 weeks on Monday, January 15th, 2024 at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern at www.youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. Until then, on behalf of Amy, Jordan, and myself, thanks for listening, and remember, there's
There's always another secret.